I am your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras.
And we have a return guest, Ben Hill. Welcome back to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. This is a very rare, very special Saturday morning recording. We don't usually do this on the weekend.
Live on the pod. It's Saturday morning.
Not that anyone would know or care, but we felt the need to share it anyway. This is the second episode in our Christmas-themed mini-season. It's Die Hard 2. Die Harder.
Here we are.
It's technically a Christmas movie, even though it came out on July 4th.
Christmas in July.
Yeah. That's clearly what they were going for here. And of course, there's always debate about whether or not the first Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I choose to believe that it is. This one, I think there's a far weaker case for this being a Christmas movie, but whatever.
Well, it's all about any of the holidays are a vibe, and I feel like this fits quite a Christmas vibe.
It does. I mean, they mention Christmas numerous times, including at the end of this movie when Dennis Franz's character Carmine Lorenzo tears up a parking ticket and declares, "It's Christmas!"
Yeah, after being a dick the entire movie.
Yeah, and apparently forgetting that a Windsor Air flight crashed at the airport, killing 230 passengers.
Hey, but it's Christmas.
Yeah. Well, Ben, is there anything you'd like to share or plug before we get into this?
Yes. Make sure you do the best you can every day and do regular maintenance on the stuff that you have. It'll last you a lot longer.
Well said. Well
like
said.
that.
Love it. Love the positive affirmations and great advice for anyone.
At the time of this recording, we had a hurricane. I used a generator that I had since Hurricane Sandy, and all I've been doing was just keeping up with the regular maintenance, and it lasted the entire night. So,
There's
Perfect.
a throwback. Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah.
So you hear that, listeners? If you maintain your generator during your next hurricane, you can still play Madden.
I was playing Mafia in Starfield, so yeah.
See, there were clearly priorities.
There's a combo, Mafia and Starfield.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back in time to 1990 when you could get sloshed at the airport bar and smoke cigarettes, all the while waiting to pick up your loved ones before they land.
Yeah.
Die Hard 2. A year after his heroics in L.A., Detective John McClane is mixed up in yet another terrorist plot on Christmas Eve, this time at Washington, D.C.'s Dulles International Airport, where he is waiting for his wife's plane to land. That same night, South American politico and drug profiteer Ramon Esperanza is arriving in U.S. custody. McClane takes action when a treasonous ex-colonel seizes control of the airport, threatening to crash every inbound flight unless Esperanza is freed. Die Hard 2 was released on July 4th, 1990 by 20th Century Fox, The Gordon Company, and Silver Pictures. Directed by Rennie Harlan. Screenplay by Stephen E. D'Souza and Doug Richardson. Based on the novel 58 Minutes by Walter Wagner and characters created by Roderick Thorpe. Starring Bruce Willis, Bonnie Bedelia, William Sadler, William Atherton, John Amos, Franco Nero, Dennis Franz, Fred Dalton Thompson, Art Evans, and Reginald Vell Johnson. The budget was $70 million, that is $168 million adjusted for inflation, and the box office was $240 million, that is $576 million adjusted for inflation. Ben, why did you want to talk about Die Hard 2?
As a person who really loved the original Die Hard, they just dropped the ball on this one. There were so many good opportunities that they just missed. And there were just so many things wrong with it. So that's the reason why.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Because I think this film is pretty highly regarded by its fans.
Yeah. But as just a regular person who's just watching movies now from back then, it's like you see all the tropes and you're like, okay. You sit back and you're like, all right, I understand this was back then, but there were just so many things that could have just been better.
Gloves are off, folks.
Yeah, wow. Just coming out hot here. Coming out hot like Colonel Stewart. Just doing naked Tai Chi to open up the movie. Well, that's really why I wanted you here, Ben, because as a former military man, when you're on the road staying at a hotel, do you do naked Tai Chi in the morning?
Absolutely. Windows open, no blinds, just naked Tai Chi. You have to start stretching. That's what you do.
And do you practice your gunplay with the remote control pointed at the TV like Colonel Stewart does?
Oh, no. It's the bathroom mirror for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's the only inaccuracy in this film, I'm going to assume.
I mean, like, that's what they teach you. Practice in the bathroom so you can see your movements.
Makes sense, I think.
I say I know I'm ignorant about the military in general, but I don't think that's right. But
Oh no, I was just fucking around.
Well, when we can include that discussion point when we go over the list of potential inaccuracies in this film a bit later, because I think there's a couple.
Yeah.
The first Die Hard came out in 1988. It's an instant classic. It's universally regarded as not only one of the greatest action movies of all time, but one of the greatest movies of all time. It's also one of the most influential. We talked a bit about this a few weeks ago, Anton, when we covered Air Force One, because what Die Hard did is start its own subgenre of action films, Die Hard on a blank. That became a template for just dozens of films throughout the 90s and 2000s, right? This concept of a lone everyman hero who must overcome an overwhelming opposing force in a relatively small and confined location. That's a very easy sell to audiences, and it led to some great movies. We talked about one, Air Force One. We really liked that movie. That's one of the better ones. You know, we got Cliffhanger, Speed, Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, Passenger 57, The Rock, Toy Soldiers, Sudden Death. Not all of these are great movies, but
when there was also Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Rocky Five, Bonfire of the Vanities.
right.
Wait, that's a different list for 1990.
Oh, yeah. Yes, that's true. Home Alone, Ghost, Dances with Wolves,
Another 48 Hours.
right? Who could forget? That's a bad sequel, right? Another 48 Hours.
It's a
Yeah.
bad sequel.
The other thing about Die Hard is that it makes Bruce Willis a star overnight. He was, I would say, a known name because of that moonlighting show that he was on, but Die Hard puts him on another level. And think about how fast his stock rose just a couple years after that first film. It was inevitable that they were going to make a sequel to this.
Yeah, arguably that made him a star. Or was it Seven Monkeys?
12 Monkeys,
Yeah.
which
it
came
was,
way later.
no. Seven Monkeys, the prequel.
The prequel, right? Of course. They just went from 7 to 12 for whatever reason. That might be my favorite Bruce Willis performance, believe it or not. 12 Monkeys.
Oh, it's a very underrated film.
Yeah, it's a really cool movie. Have you seen that, Ben?
I haven't.
Oof, that's a really good movie.
It's fun, great writing.
It is. Yeah, you would like that, Ben. If you like weird sci-fi stuff.
I'm gonna have to get a list going now with the Pat Anton recommendation list.
Well, it'll be a long list, my friend. Did you
It's a long
know
list.
Brad Pitt was nominated for an Oscar for that movie?
Really?
Yeah,
It's an all around really, really good film. It's underrated
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah.
And Ben, if you get a movie recommendation list from me, like you're gonna get a lot of weird movies.
I'm okay with weird movies.
This is a weird movie.
Yeah. This
Die
is
Hard
definitely
2.
one.
You don't think about it as being weird, but having rewatched it twice in the past few days, it's
Yeah.
weirder than I remembered.
Just someone getting just steamrolled by a roller on like a luggage belt is very
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, do they have those in airports?
I don't even
I don't-
know anymore.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like, why would
not-
you do that? Like, you're like, what about the golf clubs, right? Are you going to steamroll those golf clubs too? Like, how does that work?
This movie comes out 2 years after the first one, hugely successful at the box office. In fact, it made twice as much money as the first one. And for a short while, this was the second or third most successful sequel ever made financially. It got pretty good reviews. It has a 69% Rotten Tomatoes score. And yet, much like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, while people do think fondly of it, it is what I would say the black sheep of the original trilogy, right? Everybody agrees it's not as good as the first one. I would imagine nobody likes it more than the third one because the third one has a much higher rating, I would think.
Absolutely.
Ben made it clear that he does not like this film.
Absolutely.
Anton, what are your initial thoughts on this? Like, what's your history with Die Hard 2?
Man, I mean, it is on that list of how shall I say action movie templates. I'll start there. And there's just too much fun to unpack. I feel like I'm ready to just go guns a-blazing and start talking about this film. So why don't we just jump into it?
We can. Really quick before I forget, I'm assuming all three of us watched this movie quite a bit when it was on TNT or whatever those cable channels were in the 90s. It was just on a lot.
Yeah. We know drama.
Any Bruce Willis thoughts? You fan of his work?
I'm a big fan of Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I like Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis is my shit.
He's a guy, and, you know, it's a real tragedy what's happened to him recently. It's
super sad.
Yeah, it really is. He's a guy that, like, you look back at his filmography, and it's even better than you remember.
Mhm.
He's given a lot of really good performances over the years.
Yeah, all over
He
you know, the
worked.
spectrum of genres,
He
right?
worked.
Yeah. The
We're going
90s
to
were
be
crazy
covering a
for him.
number of his films.
Like the 90s he had like Sixth Sense, Pulp Fiction,
The
you know,
Fifth Element,
The Fifth Element,
Armageddon.
Armageddon, yeah. Like how does
The Whole Nine Yards is a great performance.
Did you
And
know
then-
that Bruce Willis was the main character in a PS1 video game?
No. Was it a
did
Die
not know
Hard game?
that.
Now, there was a Die Hard game, but there was also a PlayStation 1 video game where there is no film that it was adapted from, and he's literally just the main character in the video game. It was created by Activision.
No idea.
It's called Apocalypse.
Was it good?
No.
Okay. All right. He worked with a lot of great directors too. I'm thinking like even a little bit later in his career, I really liked him in the Wes Anderson movie, Moonrise Kingdom.
Yes.
He's great in that movie.
Super fun.
And then who could forget G.I. Joe Retaliation?
I remember the trailer for that one. He's just like he was being driven around in the trunk of a car.
Yeah, you could forget it. I was being very sarcastic because the movie stinks.
No, that was the one where they like killed off a majority of the Joes.
Yep, I think so.
Like the first like 10 minutes, like Channing Tatum dies.
Yep.
Guess they didn't have a budget to keep him.
No, they're like, we can't afford these guys.
Yeah.
Kill him off. I derailed that a bit with talking about Bruce Willis. Although it's relevant for this.
Super relevant.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
We can segue back. Production history. As we mentioned, as the first film proved to be such an instant success, producer Joel Silver wanted to move forward quickly with a sequel. For anyone who's not familiar with Joel Silver, he's one of the most successful producers of the past 40 years. Here are some of the films he's either produced or had a hand in. The Warriors, 48 Hours, Xanadu, Commando, the Lethal Weapon series, Predator, Roadhouse, Executive Decision, the Matrix trilogy, and Sherlock Holmes. The Die Hard films were also co-produced by Charles and Lawrence Gordon, who are themselves highly successful. The screenplay was primarily adapted from Walter Wagner's 1987 novel 58 Minutes. The novel has the same plot, but differs slightly. A police officer must stop terrorists who take an airport hostage while his daughter's plane circles overhead and has 58 minutes to do so before the plane crashes. Roderick Thorpe, who wrote the 1979 novel Nothing Lasts Forever, upon which Die Hard was based, received credits for creating, quote, certain original characters, unquote. His name is misspelled on screen. A little disrespectful. Before Doug Richardson co-wrote the final screenplay, Fred Dekker and Shane Black wrote drafts for the film, both of which got rejected. Dekker's draft was subsequently made into the film Ricochet, while Black's draft was made into The Last Boy Scout. The other screenwriter, Stephen D'Souza, stated that the Iran-Contra affair was a big influence on the film's plot. Colonel Stewart was based on Oliver North. The Latin American military dictator, General Esperanza, was modeled after Manuel Noriega. Now, Bruce Willis was paid $7.5 million to return as John McClane. John McTiernan was going to return to direct, but he had already committed to The Hunt for Red October. Rennie Harlin had been initially hired by 20th Century Fox to make Alien 3, but when that fell apart, he was instead offered The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. The studio liked the dailies from that film so much they offered him Die Hard 2. The schedule was so tight that he was still finishing shots on Ford Fairlane while jumping into Die Hard 2, and he planned on doing post-production on both simultaneously. Take it away, Pat.
Principal photography lasted from November 1989 all the way up until April 1990. Scenes of Dulles Airport in the snow were going to be filmed in Denver, but filming was scrapped due to unseasonably warm weather. Some outdoor scenes were filmed at Alpena, Michigan, while others needing to accommodate the landing of the 747 with snow were filmed at the former Kincheloe Air Force Base in Kincheloe, Michigan. I apologize for anyone in Kincheloe, Michigan, if I didn't pronounce that correctly.
What airport was that?
Kincheloe Air Force Base?
No, what airport? Was that McDowell Airport?
Cleo McDowell?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Wouldn't it have been better if his name was just Major McDowell?
Yes.
I'd be so happy.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it? Major Grant? Like lame.
Yeah. He gave up his whole McDowell's franchise just to join the army and be a major.
That was his twin brother.
Yes. Yes.
His twin.
That would have been perfect. That's
he's like,
perfect short.
McLean, you're from New York? My brother runs a restaurant up there. You ever been to Jamaica?
That is the best shared universe.
Yes.
It's better than Valverde. I can tell you that.
If we're trying to spin it where that's a shared universe, mind you, then that also shares the universe of Family Matters.
Yes.
Hope so.
So-
Carl Winslow was a police officer.
Yep.
He was a
Yeah.
police officer in L.A., right? This is a Reddit theory. Was in L.A. John McClane just, did too much John McClaning and decided to move to Chicago and marry an elevator operator, Harriet.
Yep.
Which is where Carmine Lorenzo is from.
Exact. And that's how all this stuff works.
McLean, yeah, I know all about you and that Nakatomi thing.
I have a friend that knows a guy that has a guy.
Oh, shut the area down. You just want me to shut the whole area down? Oh,
The Shriners, the Boy Scouts.
I got a fucking Shiners convention coming in here. Yeah, the listeners know we keep this podcast pretty clean, but this is going to be an exception.
Because it's early on a Saturday.
It is. Okay, back to the production history. Additional scenes were filmed on a soundstage in Los Angeles using fake snow. And there are some underrated, cool special effects in this film, stuff that you probably don't even realize are effects. There's a little YouTube video about the making of, which I really liked. Almost every exterior shot of the airport, including any of the air traffic control tower, is a giant miniature, which I found really cool because it's completely convincing. And it's just more proof that a well-executed, properly photographed miniature effect will not age.
Great miniatures and matte paintings. They are very popular.
CGI was available, but there's no CGI in this film. But it was the first film to use a digitally composited live action footage with a traditional matte painting that had been photographed and scanned into a computer. It was used for the last scene on the runway when you see all of the planes kind of converging together after they can land by the fire. The film was originally budgeted at $40 million, but cost overruns eventually pushed it up to $70 million, making it one of the most expensive films ever made at the time. Producer Joel Silver was repeatedly accused of recklessly overspending, and it was reported that by the end of filming, he had been relieved of his day-to-day producing duties. Because of the cost overruns and the delays in shooting, the film was barely finished on time, and its release date was pushed back to July 4th. That's it for the production history. Before we get into the discussion, we are going to take a brief break as we hear from one of our sponsors. Today's podcast is brought to you by Sprizzy. Looking to skyrocket your YouTube channel's growth? Meet Sprizzy, your video's ultimate matchmaker. Their tailored ad campaigns connect your content with viewers who are already looking for videos like yours. With Sprizzy, you're not just getting views, you're gaining subscribers who are genuinely interested in what you create. Are you ready to boost your reach? Visit Sprizzy.com today and let's launch your channel to new heights. Sprizzy, the smarter way to promote your YouTube channel. Number one reason why it wasn't better, it wasn't directed by John McTiernan.
Yep.
I think we can agree on this and just move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very fair. Looked tonally and just overall very different from the first film.
Yeah. Rennie Harlan is a downgrade, and I say this as someone who likes a lot of his other stuff. Cliffhanger and The Long Kiss Goodnight, I think, are really enjoyable action movies. I even think Deep Blue Sea is entertaining.
Deep Blue Sea? Yes.
They ate me.
A fucking
A
shark.
shark.
Right?
Yeah,
Fucking
but
shark.
despite the increase in budget, I feel like this film, and I saw it in like HD for the couple rewatches, just doesn't look as good as the first film. And I mean that just even the smudginess of the second film, really shaky.
Smudgy is
Yeah.
a good word to describe the cinematography. Oliver Wood, I think, was a really good cinematographer. He shot the Bourne trilogy, but this does not look nearly as smooth or as slick as the first film.
They're like, let's just slap some Vaseline on the camera.
It
We'll hide all
looked-
the bullshit.
It
Yeah.
looked like there was Vaseline on the camera in some scenes. It really did.
Well, there's a lot of parallels that I see compared to Hong Kong like crime thrillers, talking Hard Boiled, The Killer, in terms of the action cinematography and even some of the way that the films were shot. But I feel like it's almost a bit of a disservice considering those films were able to do a lot with not as big of a budget, whereas this film had a much bigger budget but does not look as good.
When you say a much bigger budget, you mean like 10 times bigger.
Yeah.
Because I think all those Hong Kong ones that you were just referencing, they're probably $5 million budget at most.
Yeah, it's insane making those films look that good and thinking about this one.
Yeah, I think if you're comparing this to the first one, it definitely just lacks a lot of polish. And this must be Rennie Harlan kind of flexing his horror roots. This is one of the most violent movies of its era.
Yeah.
And I don't mind violence in movies, but they're like horror movie kills in this. Like when the two mercenaries kill the guy at the church, like the old guy.
Yep.
And then the icicle kill, that's probably the most famous one. There was a very similar kill in Cliffhanger a couple years after this.
Yeah.
Anton's smiling. He knows what I'm talking about.
A Cliffhanger. I mean,
You like Cliffhanger?
oh yeah, I like Cliffhanger because it's goofy. I love Ace Ventura making fun of it.
Yes.
One thing I would like to say about the violence, though, is like I was watching it again, doing a little bit of research. Originally, it was supposed to be NC-17, and then they made it rated R. They cut out a lot of the violence, which is still crazy because it's still really gory.
It's still really gory, but it's so funny. Did it have to be? No. Did they
No.
have to try to get an NC-17 rating? No.
Yeah,
No.
they were like, yeah, no, let's make it R. So it's so that was cool.
Yeah, quite the body count in this movie.
Yeah,
Even if you don't count the plane crash, which we'll get to.
so bad.
Also, I felt the fight scenes in this weren't as well choreographed as the first one. Like, there's a lot of inconsistencies. Like, remember in when McClane is fighting the guy in the baggage area?
Yes,
The other guy shoots the aerosol can out of his hands, but then he can't hit. Like, he could have just shot him, and then he can't hit him when McClane's trying to run away. It's like, you're either a good shot or you're not.
Yeah, and at that point, you know what? That's just plot armor. Like,
It is.
because the whole movie would have been over.
It also, you have to keep in mind, he's fighting Green Berets, basically.
Yeah, and how
It's
can
like-
you? Yeah, and then random black security IT guy. Yep, that's who I modeled my entire career after. Actually,
Leslie Barnes.
yeah, him and other black IT guys in movies. Sam Jackson, Jurassic Park as well. Cigarette and
Well,
mouth.
and if you remember from the first Die
Yes.
Hard, the bad guys have a black IT guy,
yes,
Yes, they do.
Theo. Who
Yeah.
I actually forget, he survives the movie.
yeah, which is another weird thing. Like,
He's the only survivor.
Was Theo a sympathetic character?
No.
No, which is why it was weird.
No.
yeah,
I mean, he was certainly the most likable of all the bad guys, apart from Alan Rickman. But then you realize
Yeah.
he was also okay with committing mass murder.
Yeah.
So, also this is one of the dumbest action sequences in the film, I think, when the SWAT team gets ambushed on like the moving walkway. They're just complete dumbasses.
yeah. Like, where's your situation awareness? Like, what are you doing? You're just all standing in one straight line so they can all shoot you. So bad.
And then McClane takes out the entire team of Green Berets who are, posing as painters.
Yeah, and he's rolling slowly on the floor. Like, I think my dog rolls as fast as that John McClane was rolling. It's like, you guys are supposed to be special forces, supposed to be the best of the best. You can't
There's
hit
a lot of
roll.
shootouts in this film.
Yeah,
How many shootouts would you say there are? Like 6, 7?
easy. Like, yeah, definitely like 6. You got the church at the end.
There's a fake shootout.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a fake shootout. And then the
Yeah.
one on snowmobiles, which is a fake shootout and real shootout combined.
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we get the final showdown on the wing of the 747. Kind of lame.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you got the shootout
Yeah.
on the plane as well, where John McClane pulls a Tyrese from Fast and Furious and does the ejectocito and flies right out of the plane.
Which that type of plane doesn't have an ejector seat.
Yeah.
This film suffers from the reality bending. The reality bending question: how long is this runway?
Yeah.
Another Fast and the Furious reference.
Yes.
Or maybe they were referencing this.
Ooh.
Yeah, we do see Cleo McDowell, twin brother, get sucked into the jet
What a-
engine.
what a
would that
horrible way to
ruin
go.
a jet engine?
What a horrible way to go.
That's a
It would
horrible
have
way to
to.
die. Yeah.
It would have to. Like, and you have a weapon with you too. I think he only had like a knife left, but like the metal in the fan blades.
Wait, we know it would wreck it because we know Geese wrecked that
Yes.
Sully flight, which landed in the Hudson. So if you suck in Cleo McDowell,
Mm.
That's at least like 5 geese.
At
At least. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least.
maybe 6. They got the Big Mac. I got the Big Mick. My buns have no seeds, guys. I
What
love
was
that movie.
what was oh man, what was the line? Like, if I work here for 15 years, then maybe I get to promote to
Mhm.
manager.
Yeah,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah, another Kanye reference right there. Oh, man, I forgot what it was. Gone. Yeah.
This isn't really a nitpick, but the use of the F word in this film is comical to me.
Yeah.
Excessive?
Yeah, I think I want to say it because again, I don't remember it being like that in the first movie. And the first movie had bad like I don't
Hmm.
care about bad language in movies, but this was definitely in the era where for whatever reason, I don't know if like the rating system changed or something in the 80s with the MPA, but it just felt like studios wanted to put more F words in the movies. I'm thinking of like what happened with like Scorsese and Tarantino. I don't know what the cause for it was, but I think you don't get as much of it now as you did back in that era. It's weirdly dated in a way, and it's almost endearing. It's
So
funny
there is approximately one F bomb every 2 minutes
in this movie.
in this movie.
I believe it. It's just funny when you hear minor characters like Leslie Barnes saying it. Like they can land by using the fucking fire. It's like it's strange.
I think that's the only thing that was accurate about the whole military thing too, because if anybody knows anybody that's in the military, boy, do we love cursing.
What do we think of the score?
All right.
Same
Yeah.
score from the first film.
Mm?
It's all right.
Rinse and repeat. It worked.
Yeah.
Copy and paste. Michael Kamen. All right, let's talk about the plot.
Oof.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon. Very
Yeah.
similar to what we covered last year around Christmas, Anton. Home Alone 2. This is another ultimate example of the It Happened Again sequel. They ran it back. They piled on. I don't think it's as unoriginal as Home Alone 2 was, but it's somehow more dated than the first Die Hard.
Go to the airport, she says.
Pick up the kids. Have a good Christmas. It has the same problem Ghostbusters 2 suffers from, where it's a retread of the original, just with slight differences. Like instead of Nakatomi Plaza, we're at Dulles Airport. Let's start with the villain, because I think this is probably the biggest downgrade from the first one right now.
Well-
Equaling Alan Rickman as Hans
Which villain?
Gruber, that was always going to be a challenge. Ben, I heard you starting to say something.
Yeah, I was like, which villain?
I'm talking about Colonel Stewart.
Okay. Yeah.
He's okay.
Yeah.
Intention. Do the intentions make sense?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
you mean his like character's motivations?
Yeah, his motivations.
I don't think so. I'll get to it a little bit later. I have questions about like what was their plan?
Right? You know?
Now the plan makes no sense, but do the motivations make sense?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe
Well-
they could have elaborated on that a little bit because
Yeah,
what if he had some.
what were his
Yeah.
intentions?
Yeah, that's clearly what I'm asking. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Like, did he feel disgruntled like Ed Harris's character felt in The Rock? Like, remember in The Rock,
Like,
Ed Harris had very clear motivations for what he was doing on Alcatraz.
yeah,
Because he felt wronged by the American military establishment. And I don't think Colonel Stewart ever states anything like that in this film.
He doesn't.
no,
Oh.
he wants more land to do naked tai chi.
What if he has like this whole Doflamingo like backstory that no one knows about, right? Because like, and then that's the real reason. Like, if they would explain that, like, made a prequel to this about him, probably could be on his side.
For any non One Piece listeners, it's a deep cut.
Yeah.
One Piece Colonel Stewart story.
Yes.
I think William Sadler does a good job. Like he's certainly a believable psychopath. Like,
Yeah.
remember when he's on the radio with the control tower and McClane's like, "What are you trying to do? Set off a nuke or whatever?" And he's like, "No, I think we can find something in between." That's pretty cold.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of interaction between him and McClane, unlike Gruber in the first one, right? This feels a lot less personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like what if you're trying to recreate like lightning in a bottle with the first one, they definitely didn't hit the checkbox of a proper foil to McClane's character. There was just not enough well thought out process in terms of writing the motivation to a character that would undermine the holidays for John McClane.
I do think it was really smart of him to hire the T-1000 for his crew, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Incredible foresight.
And also the pest, John Leguizamo, just briefly in there for like 2 seconds, cutting something open.
And I don't think he was a well-known actor at the time, but the black guy on his team, Vondi Curtis Hall, he ended up being a great actor. I really like his work.
Yeah.
Thankless role here, of course, but he became a well-known actor after this. They also the final fight on the wing of the plane. I guess you could say it's realistic because he's a badass Green Beret and he just kicks McClane's ass.
Mm-hmm. But
I
like,
wanted more.
but pre 9/11 movies are New York City cops better than military people? Like
And
that's
apparently, he gets the better of a lot of the Green Berets in this film.
yeah.
I mean, can you imagine it? Like, if John McClane is a stand-in for a New York cop or any New Yorker that can imagine themselves in the same situation, fighting
Mhm.
a Green Beret on a plane, you just want to feel good about that, right?
Yeah. It's almost like everyone believing every guy over a certain age believes that they can land a plane. I know I do. Oof.
How hard can it be?
That's what I'm saying. I played Flight
Yeah.
Simulator.
Yeah.
So fighting a Green Beret and winning against them as a New York cop, absolutely. I see
I played Flight Simulator. I crash every time.
it.
And then McClane blows up the plane with the Zippo. We'll get to that.
Oh my gosh.
We'll get to that. Save it. Save it.
Oh my god.
Do we wish John Amos was the main villain?
Yes.
Yes, and not a secret villain? Absolutely.
Well, that's the thing about the plot. Remember when he shows up with his team and they were like, didn't Colonel Stewart used to be on your team? And he's like, no, not anymore. It's like, maybe get someone else.
Yeah.
Find
Hey,
another team.
conflict of interest right there. There's just too many coincidences.
Oh, I want to know. I had a question about this. So if he's a major and Stewart was a colonel, how did he teach him everything he knows?
He could have had him when he was a captain and he was a lieutenant, and then
It's true. They
progressing in
just
the ranks.
fast-tracked Stewart.
Yeah,
They're like, you're really good at selling weapons to Iran, so
yeah.
we're promoting you. Although Major Grant, John Amos's character, didn't make it through this film, he redeemed himself by coming back to life and becoming Admiral Fitzwallace on The West Wing.
So many
Who is
good
one of
roles.
my all-time favorite TV characters.
So
I
many
absolutely
good
love him on The
roles.
West Wing.
I was just saying, so many good roles. It was
Yeah.
either that was an awesome role. He was also Pastor Nelson in Medea's Witness Protection.
Yes.
So
You're right.
I have actually never seen any Medea movie. My family hates me because of that. So
If you're gonna start somewhere, Medea's
Oh.
Witness Protection.
it's okay. I'm not going to start. I made
Well,
it this long.
If John Amos is in it, then okay, let's talk about the other villain who you could argue is the biggest villain in the film, even though he doesn't do much. General Esperanza from Valverde. Now, this is cool. Valverde is the fictitious Latin American country that they used in Commando.
Oh,
So it's a shared universe with Commando, which I enjoy stuff like that.
Ooh, okay.
that is really neat.
What do you think, Valverde? Good vacation destination these days?
2024 Valverde.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those. It's probably in a similar situation where you're using RuneScape dollars to buy everything because the actual currency is just inflated too much.
Krugerrand?
What country where that's actually true? Like, there's like no joke. Like, they're using like RuneScape dollars to purchase things.
Is that a real thing that's happening?
Yeah,
believe
that's a
so.
real. That's
Yeah.
a real thing.
North Korea?
No,
No,
it's
I think
like
the South
it's a
American.
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
Latin. Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Well,
Not Venezuela, is it? I know they're broke
no.
AF.
Wait, no. Is it No, Venezuela was rich enough to give Petty Island to America, which is a real place in between Philly and Camden. So I don't think they're using
Yeah.
like RuneScape
yeah,
dollars.
no. But I digress.
Sounds like a whole nother podcast episode.
Yeah.
So the Esperanza thing, the Valverde piece to this, right? This is what I think dates the film a lot worse than the first one. The Iran-Contra drug lord villain getting sprung from prison, modeled after Noriega. Just think about how timeless the heist from the first film is. It's just, okay, bearer bonds don't exist anymore, but it's just a bunch of guys trying to steal money, right? Like, that worked 30 years before the first Die Hard. That works now.
Mm-hmm.
Questions for you guys about this plan that Colonel Stewart and Major Grant put together, right? Why wouldn't they fly the general's plane into one of the many military bases in the DC area? Like, why Dulles?
Because of plot armor. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
They
no
had like
sense.
an escort too, and then halfway through, the escort was just like, nah, we're good. We're in America now. Like, no, that's not how it worked. There would have been some type of handoff.
Maybe don't extradite Esperanza on Christmas Eve. Pick another day.
Yeah.
Any day.
Really should be any other day is fine.
Yeah.
364, 365 days on a leap year. All their days.
Is Christmas Eve a low travel day?
Absolutely not. The
No.
Christmas time is the most terrible time to fly anywhere.
But I always thought it was leading up to a certain point for Christmas, because on Christmas Eve, it's like if you're flying on Christmas Eve, I guess you're trying to make it to Christmas Day.
Yeah.
It's a busy travel day either way.
Yeah. That whole season is just terrible.
Also, how incompetent are the Justice Department guys just chilling at the airport? Remember when the reporters interviewing
Yeah.
them and they're like, "Yeah, we don't know when his plane's landing. We'll just be here when it gets here." It's like,
Yeah,
what?
no comment. We don't have anything to talk about. And why are they just sitting there? You could literally sit at the gate. I'm sure they have secret rooms that they could have sat at. It's Dulles.
It's
They could
three
have took
guys in suits
yeah,
and like
in
trench
trench
coats.
coats. Yeah,
Yeah.
they could have
Yeah.
just took Carmine's office. Say, Carmine, we're borrowing your office, just like two Iwo Jimas.
Like Iwo Jima, whoa! General Esperanza is being guarded by one soldier on the plane. One.
Yeah.
Not two, not three, not a squad, but one.
Where does they get the cigar from?
His pocket.
No, but like, who just lets some?
Well, you know how things are in Valverde. You know,
It's true too. Another reason
cigars
why they
grow
would
on
have
trees in Valverde.
Another reason why they should have had a better escort. Go ahead, Anton. I'm sorry.
What was that cigar in his butt?
Right? Yeah, it's a prison cigar.
Oh my god! Oh my gosh!
They fly him in with one guard on the plane, just one.
Yeah.
I like when he's just like, "You're a good soldier," and the guard's like, "See."
Yes, I am.
He just nods.
Unrealistic dialogue. I think like that was definitely
Terrible.
throughout this film. Very unrealistic dialogue. Not in a fun way that's executed by great actors like in the first film, but this was just
No.
bad dialogue.
Yeah.
Getting more into Stewart's plan. Jump in if I don't have this right. His plan is to spring Esperanza. They can't go back to Valverde because that country's falling apart or whatever. So they're going to fly to Cuba and do what? Just live there forever, just being friends with a drug lord dictator? Like,
I think the
what's the
assumption
plan?
is Esperanza has access to offshore accounts.
Right, but what are they going to do for the rest of their lives? Hang out in Cuba?
Yeah, find other generals to extradite, quote unquote.
Ruin John McClane's Christmas for years to come.
Yes.
Another thing I noticed, did you notice that the entire plan hinges on not only the general's flight landing on time, but also a blizzard?
Yeah.
So what was the plan if it didn't snow?
Very calculated.
In every single military operation, you have what's called a PACE plan, right? You have your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plan. It just seems like they just had to pee, and that's pretty garbage.
It's so much worse than the plot of the first film. Like I said, that was just straight up, the bad guys are trying to steal $600 million. But if you think about it, why the first film holds up so well, the Nakatomi hostage thing, that could happen. It was a very clever plan. Remember there was a lot of misdirection where they were pretending to be terrorists and they planned it all out. And what's cool about that movie is if it hadn't been for John McClane, Gruber would have absolutely gotten away with it. Remember at the end, they had the ambulance in the basement that they snuck in and they were going that would have worked.
Yeah.
I am willing to forgive all that because there has to be a suspension of disbelief in any one of these action movies. But we have to address the elephant in the room here. I know that they try to give some lame-ass bit of dialogue about the other airport in D.C. being held up, but McClane's wife, Holly, being held hostage in this movie, the suspense is completely unjustified, as it is with all of the other planes. This is the thing. The threat about the planes running out of fuel, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They could have just been diverted to other airports.
Exactly.
Sometimes there's a plot hole that's too big to overcome, and I think this is one of them. It just does not hold up to any scrutiny. It didn't make sense in 1990. It makes less sense now. Within a half hour's flight time, you have Baltimore, Philly, Richmond, Pittsburgh, Raleigh. I'm not even including all the military bases that are in that area. There are dozens of locations for those planes to go.
Or even smaller airfields.
Yeah.
Airfields. I mean, planes have had to make landings just in open farming areas.
Or in harbors.
Yes.
Go back to Sully again. Yeah.
It does not make any sense. And also, they created their own plot hole. So you know how Stewart knocks out the communication with the tower? There's phones on all the planes. We see Holly using one.
Yes.
Yep.
Just call the airport.
Yeah. Just call the plane. Or Morse code. You can easily string up some lights, put Morse code down. Well, actually, I take that back. The visibility was very, very shit.
I don't think we're being too hard on this. Like, this is laughable.
Yeah.
It's why the movie moves as fast as it does, because it doesn't want you to ask these questions while you're watching it.
But it also feels like it's being drawn out a lot, too.
Yeah, I was like, is it well paced? I think mostly yes.
Mostly.
Yeah.
So we've agreed, like, Stewart's plan is doesn't make a lick of sense.
No,
No, absolutely not.
there's paper thin, and then it just rips apart.
Let's talk about McClane a little bit. Another thing I
Mhm.
found objectionable with the plot: no one at the airport is willing to help him with anything.
Yes. Actually, nope. The one black guy that's there, that's the janitor.
Yeah.
He's the
Oh,
only.
not the
Yeah.
black guy.
No, not the black
Oh, the
IT
guy that
guy.
lets him in, you mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
To get
he's
to the baggage area. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's the only. Yeah, he's the only one.
he's the only
No
one.
one. It's crazy. No one's taking him seriously.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
And Carmine being
except for the mentally challenged guy that works
Yes.
in the basement, Marvin.
shout out to Marvin.
Shout out to Marvin.
Also, that would never happen now either. You can't keep a mentally handicapped person locked up in a basement and an airfield, and
He's locked down there like Freddy Krueger.
yeah.
There's like a steam room. It's like, this is creepy.
This is where I live. Like, okay, well, good for them for giving him a job and trusting him and stuff.
Yeah, the containment part of the first movie that worked so well doesn't apply here. Because remember, in the first movie, he's essentially trapped in the tower.
Mhm.
And like here,
Mhm.
he's bouncing all over the place. He's in different parts of the airport, which we know takes a long time to get to. And if you've ever
Yes.
been to
Yeah.
Dulles, sometimes you have to take those giant like people movers that go from
Mhm.
one terminal to the next. He's in the tunnels. He's at the church. He's at there's a frozen lake at one point where he's on the
Well-
snowmobiles.
He's not physically trapped in this film. He's literally trapped by emotion.
It's in a glass case of emotion.
He's in a glass case of emotion, trapped with a cop from the Midwest trying to foil his every move.
What I find weird about this too is they spend this entire movie for John McClane to save his wife, but then after this movie, they don't talk about her. Well, she's never in any other movie.
They get divorced, I think, don't
They
they?
get divorced.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but like they never show her again. They show the kids grown up, and the one that came out, I forgot the name of that. Die Hard with my
It was-
kids. I guess
it was
bring
it was
your
the
kids
it
to
was
work
the
today.
fifth one,
Yeah.
right?
Die
Yeah.
Hard Christmas Vacation.
Yeah.
But like they never talk about it or they never show her again. It's like, wow. I would be upset too if that was the case.
I think this movie's better if you just remove his wife completely from the play. All the stuff with her on the plane and that dick reporter, it's awful.
Yeah. Also, how'd she get a taser on board?
Oh, the old lady?
Yeah, she.
This is one of the most blatant, like pre 9/11 movies I've ever seen.
But John McClane was like, when he's talking to Carmine, he says, "Hey, these guns that these quote unquote baggage thieves have, yeah, they'll beat all your metal detectors."
Oh,
Meanwhile-
it's a porcelain gun made
Yeah.
in Germany. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not a thing.
They'll
Well,
explode.
we'll talk about the Glock part of this.
Yeah,
Oh my
old lady has
gosh.
a taser.
I have a whole thing we're going to go through, which
Yeah.
will rely on your military expertise, Ben. The other part, so the end of this movie, McClane blows up the plane.
Yeah.
They didn't have hostages or anything. Like, what was stopping the Air Force from just intercepting them 5 minutes after they took off?
They ran the military.
That was the whole thing about, again, what makes the first movie so timeless. What's stopping the FBI and the cops from going in? They have all the hostages at the party.
Yeah.
You don't have anything like that here other than, well, the planes might crash if they don't go to other airports. I hadn't seen this movie in a while. I was laughing my ass off with how bad the dialogue is.
So
McClane is
trash.
cracking jokes left and right. A lot of them don't land. And look, none of this is Bruce Willis's fault because I think his performance is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the writing is just so bad.
Let's go through some of it. Holly told me to wake up and smell the 90s.
Yeah. Finally used a fax machine.
The lady with the taser, it's like something out of The Naked Gun.
Yes. Or airplane.
Yep.
All the Dick Thornburg stuff. We haven't even talked about Carmine Lorenzo yet, really. Holy crap.
Carmine Lorenzo, much better suited at that table for the Chicago Bears SNL skit.
Look, McClane, I got 5 murders down on the south side to take care of.
You're in
You
my
come
little.
in my airport. Oh, shut the area down. It's dust footprints. There's just some punk stealing luggage. Awful. Just running through the dialogue.
Yeah.
One of the ones that cracked me up when the reporter asked Stewart for she's like, "Can I have a word?" And he's like, "You can have 2. Fucking you." And then he puts his hand in the camera's lens and he goes, "No pictures, you pinko bitch." What? What decade
What?
is this from?
Yeah. Oh,
The
gosh.
SWAT team, when they're about to confront the T-1000, played by Robert Patrick, he's like, "What do I look like? A sitting duck." McClane might have the worst line in the film, though. "Hey, Carmine, what sets off the metal detector first? The lead in your ass or the shit in your brains?"
Like, what
No
is
one
he
would talk
eating?
like this.
Is he
No.
eating like an iron-rich diet that his shit has that much metal in it? What is he doing?
Yeah, it
Don't
makes
know.
no sense.
And not only does it make no sense, the camera does like a crash zoom into like it like cuts to a
Yeah.
close up of his face like it's some oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that.
It's when people make parodies nowadays of action films, it's funny how much this ended up kind of parodying the first Die Hard because of how over the top they were trying to make it.
You're right, Anton, because I rewatch the first Die Hard fairly regularly. It does not have cheesy dialogue like this.
No,
Mm-mm.
it
There's
has
good jokes
memorable
in it.
yeah.
You're right. A lot of this does feel like parody, and that's why it just hasn't aged as well. Like the reporter who tells McClane, "You give me this story, and I'll have your baby," and he's like, "That's not the kind of ride I'm looking for."
Or I think for me it was to prove his point, John McClane has to fire the
Blanks. Yeah.
fire blanks into into Carmine,
Which could
that
kill you
which could kill you.
at that
Mhm.
range. And the cops
It-
would have shot him in real life. He would have been
Yeah,
shot to death.
Absolutely.
like nothing about it was believable. But of course, it just felt so out of place. I don't know. It just among the hundreds of things out of place in this film.
I do like Barnes's line. I think he's talking to Trudeau, played by future presidential candidate Fred Dalton Thompson. He says, "And where do we get those big portable lights? Borrow them from Batman?" I love it. I know that there's a nostalgia for this kind of movie and like this kind of dialogue because they don't make films like this anymore. And I have to admit there is an element to this type of cheesy dialogue that I do appreciate because of nostalgia. But at the same time, again, to compare it to the first movie does not have anything this cheesy in it.
Mhm.
Who's quoting this movie in 2024? Or like
Nobody.
who's like sure maybe nostalgic for like the sense of films like this don't get made anymore, but I don't think people are sincerely thinking like, man, I just really miss that Carmine guy.
Well,
They should make more characters like him.
we'll get to him a little bit later. He is just a watered down, cheesier version of the police captain in the first movie.
Yeah.
Where they're like, let's make him more of a stereotype. Let's make him more of a dick. It's like you don't have to do that.
And like even worse, let's not create like the perfect pair just when you think about the chemistry of Reginald L. Johnson
Mm.
and Bruce Willis in the first film.
Yeah.
Such
He
a
gets a
travesty.
2-minute cameo here.
Yeah. The whole first
Well, that's
movie.
that leads to more bad dialogue. He's like, "Hey, John, it sounds like you're pissing in someone's pool," and he's like, "Yeah, and I'm fresh out of chlorine." Horrible.
He should have just might as well said, "Hey, John, did you know that we have Family Matters on Monday nights from at 6:30?"
Hey, John, I don't know if anybody told you, I'm on a sitcom. Was that on Fox or was that ABC Family?
Probably ABC.
Probably ABC. By season 6, Carl Winslow asked his dear friend John McClane to execute on a hit on Urkel.
John, I need you to do something for me.
As a favor.
It's a favor. All right, there's a couple things I want to talk about, though, that I really, really like. I'm a huge fan of McClane's shawl collar sweater.
Okay, yeah.
I like them.
This is going to sound super funny as well. I love all the sneakers in this film.
Oh, go on.
Yeah.
I couldn't get quite the exact models, but you see a lot of like Converse high top, not Chuck All Stars, but there used to be like All Pro Converse high tops. And then also you get several like really cool like Nike Air Maxes.
Mhm.
There's a lot of really fun sneakers in this film.
This probably would have been the first year for Air Maxes, right? 1990?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Love a good Air Max. And I wanted to give a shout out because they must have paid for the product placement here because it's featured prominently in several shots. But the Tag Heuer 2000 chronograph professional that Colonel Stewart and his men are wearing, great watch. They're all synchronized. That's actually a cool part in the film where they're all synchronizing their watches. Love it. Love a good Tag Heuer. And that's a shout out to Pete, one of our frequent guests. He's a big Tag Heuer fan. Wanted to throw that in there. We talked about some of the, members of Stewart's team who became well-known actors, right? Vondi Curtis Hall, John Leguizamo, Robert Patrick. Did you notice who was piloting the British airliner?
They looked familiar.
Colm Meaney, Miles O'Brien himself from Star Trek.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I had forgotten he's in this because, again, it's just a quick bit. All right, next reason. I have bigger, not better. It's bigger than the original, but it doesn't make it better. I read that John McTiernan was adamant that he didn't want to make a movie about terrorists blowing things up. That might have been one of the reasons he didn't want to do this one, although it's probably just because of a scheduling conflict with Hunt for Red October. I mentioned this earlier, how the first Die Hard is a containment movie, and it works because you're contained in this single location. Once you start to expand on that, but you're trying to keep the same plot, I think it changes the movie completely. Now, they didn't run into this issue in Die Hard with a Vengeance because the plot wasn't a carbon copy of the first one. It was pretty fresh. You know, the whole Simon Says thing, how how the villain deliberately has McClane and Zeus running all over Manhattan to just keep them distracted from his actual plan.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned this before. McClane in this one, he's bouncing all over the airport. He's at the church. He's in the woods. He's at this frozen lake. It's a lot of moving around. All right, we have to talk about it now.
Okay. There's no avoiding this.
Yeah, the plane crash. It's fucking insane.
It's nuts.
It is.
There's no way they would put this in a movie today.
Absolutely not. And is that because it's post 9/11, or is it just
I think
because
it was horrible in 1990?
But even the way that it's written, the tone just felt so off.
Yeah, I mean, I think the closest they do now is like short misses where it gives the pilot enough time to adjust. But yeah, they would never do that again today. It was bad.
230 people get killed on this plane crash. Not only is it just like horrible to watch in a film, it's uncomfortable, but it also ruins the already weak plot, in my opinion, because it takes any plausibility out of the situation. The airport would immediately shut down. All the federal agencies would get involved.
Every single one. It's Dulles. It's right there next to Washington.
The most insane part about it, the airliner crashing at the airport into a giant fireball is not what causes mass panic at the airport. That's not what makes the news. This is no small nit to pick. The mass panic doesn't start until Dick Thornburg starts reporting from the air that the terrorists have taken control. But for whatever reason, the giant plane crash that kills 230 people does not.
Means absolutely nothing.
I was thinking about this a bit more. It might be the craziest thing I've ever seen in any action movie ever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at least the craziest thing that was meant to be set in like a pseudo-realistic world. Like, what the heck? Nothing about it seemed grounded in reality.
Yeah.
No, everyone on board, when it cuts to the inside, it's like, again, it's just everything in this movie is a walking stereotype. Remember the flight attendants like talking to the old couple and she's like, "Oh
Yes.
dear, I do hope we land on time for tea."
And like that's supposed to make people extra sympathetic. It's like, what?
So the plane crashes. No one at the airport is apparently aware of this because everyone just keeps drinking at the bar and whatnot.
Smoking under the smoke detectors.
It leads to a really awkward bit of acting from Bruce Willis. Remember, he's like covered in snow because he was trying to signal the plane, and in slow motion, he's just like, and then everyone's glum for a few minutes, and then the movie still ends on this really happy ending, and it's like they completely forgot about the plane.
That never happened.
It feels wrong.
It's nuts when in the later films they reference McClane's history. In Die Hard 4, like they pull up all his files, like who is this guy? What's the story on him? And they talk about, Nakatomi Plaza. But then are they going to say, "Oh, wow, you guys remember that huge plane crash at Dulles?"
No.
Not at all.
That's the thing. If this happened in real life, that would have been the equivalent of 9/11 in 1990.
Yeah.
Terrorists crashing an airliner at Dulles Airport.
Absolutely.
Again, this is the thing with the tone of this film, why I do think it is really poorly written. The end of the movie, you have Dennis Franz ripping up McClane's parking ticket. He's like, "It's Christmas!" I guess everyone just forgot about the Windsor air flight that crashed.
It's because they weren't American. I think that's what it really was.
Like I said, it's insane. It's a real flaw with this film. I don't think we're being harsh on it. This is no small nit to pick. It is awful. What do you think the body count is of this film? I actually haven't Googled it. I'm just curious. It's got to be over 300 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'll take the over on that.
Yeah.
Let's look this up now. Die Hard 2 body count.
Okay, I'm going to guess 347.
I'm going to go Price is Right, and I'm going to go 348.
Deaths on Die Hard 2. It says 84. That's not true.
That's not.
No.
That's
See,
not right.
No.
they don't count.
Ben,
Yeah.
I win.
You win.
Wait, no. Are they just?
I think they're just talking about kills. There's a whole fucking plane.
That's not an official kill count. That's
That might be everyone except for the airliner. So what's 230 plus 84?
Threes.
3. Wow, we're bad at math.
Yeah.
It's less than 350.
320, 322.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, it's over. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like how many of those people were actually killed by John McClane? That's the real thing.
He probably killed 30 people. If we're
Easy.
including, remember, he blows up a whole plane at the end.
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
that's a few dozen people right there.
John McClane's a killing machine.
Yeah.
Felt more believable in the first one.
And he's in
Yeah.
his 30s and like none of his bones were hurting after all of that stuff he was doing. This guy was just jumping through all of that. If I jumped off of like one of those luggage rollage machines right now, man, I would be out for at least a week.
Look, it's unrealistic. I just had a flu shot yesterday and my arm's still sore.
Yeah, you know.
Fuck, it's a flu shot. Yeah, he's definitely he's super powered in this one for sure. I know we're just gonna keep comparing it to the first one. It felt more grounded in the first one. Now he did do some Superman stuff in the first one when he jumps off the building tied to the fire hose.
But he had to overcome his injuries in the first film, right? Whether it's all the shards of glass.
He got wrecked.
His feet, man. Like...
He was you could see he was like falling apart by the end of the film.
Yeah, he takes a lot of damage here and just bounces back. Apparently he's a police officer, but he doesn't know you can't park in front of an airport and just go inside. I don't think you could do that.
No. You can, right? See, if you're a cop, you know, you got the code.
Well, it didn't work here.
Obviously not.
That there's another walking stereotype. Lorenzo's brother.
Yes.
Leo.
You know what he should have done? He should have had the same pickup truck like land drill planner that Glenn Powell had in Twisters. Then they can't tow his car.
You're right, they can't. I just had a thought. So he rips up McClane's parking ticket at the end, and he's like, "It's Christmas." Well, his car's still in the impound. It got towed.
Yeah.
Doesn't really help him that much.
Still got to pay that $40.
That scene just emphasizes how stupid Carmine is.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
I like when McClane exposes that Grant's a traitor. He's like, "It is time to kick ass." And he just crashes his car immediately. All right, let's talk about Carmine. One of the dumbest characters I've ever seen in any action movie.
Absolutely. But it also shows, you know what? That is probably the realest form of leadership right there, because certain organizations and a lot of people, they always talk about how their bosses are stupid. And look at Carmine. That guy's a fucking idiot.
I got fucking reindeer flying in here from the fucking petting zoo.
What is this guy doing?
You are in my little pond, and I am the
I'm
big
a
fish.
Yeah.
When he left.
He just wants to watch the Bears. I never got this reference as a kid, and I'm a huge Simpsons fan, and I love with rewatching. I'm like, oh my god, this was who they were referencing in the episode Homer Badman, when Homer is getting just all the flack for sexual harassment because he ripped the gummy Venus de Milo off of the babysitter's butt. And they do like the 60 minutes like dramatization of like the Homer Simpson story played by Dennis Franz. Go watch it. It is hilarious. And I was like, who is this guy?
They do his character on Family Guy, too. Do you remember that? Where he's like interrogating a suspect. He's like, "Do you want to see my ass?"
I don't remember that.
Oh, it was so good. And the guy was like, "No, please." He's like, "I'll do it. I'll show you."
But like there had to have been like a kind of a cult, I guess, appeal for Dennis Franz in the 90s.
Yeah,
for
I think
all these
NYPD Blue was
references.
big.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh, he sucks in this movie. Funniest part, he's not even Italian.
Nope.
He's like a Polish, Jewish actor from Chicago. I mean, the Chicago accent is on display here, but Carmine Lorenzo is such a hilarious Italian stereotypical name.
Yeah.
And
they might as well named him Michael Anthony at that point. He also was drafted in the army.
Dennis Franz?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Vietnam? Yeah.
I know about what you did in L.A. and that Nakatomi thing, but were you in Nam?
I was.
I was in the Tet Offensive.
I was airborne.
Airborne.
Ugh.
Yeah, you jumped off a building, McClane. Do you ever jump out of a plane?
Wearing his maroon beret.
His character's so bad, I almost wanted to knock the film down like a whole letter grade just because of him.
Yeah.
Like just not entertaining even in an endearing way.
No.
You can joke at the parody of it.
Fred Dalton Thompson plays Trudeau, the head of the airport. He was a good character actor, future congressman. I don't mind him. He's fine here. And the other one, though, William Atherton, why is he in the movie again?
Feels very stereotypical.
There's 2 supporting characters who are news reporters.
Yeah.
Yeah, was this just the way characters were written in like these very templatized big budget studio films? Like, don't give any characters actual grounded depth. Just make them walking stereotypes.
Didn't feel that way in the first one or the third one.
No.
We already talked about the janitor who lives in the basement. I don't know.
Yeah. Didn't really lead anywhere.
No, he has like random things to help McLean. He's like, I got a map system here. I can explain to you. It's just like Iwo Jima. So the military unit that shows up here, led by Major Grant, is called Blue Light. That was a real American counterterrorist subunit of the 5th Special Forces Group that existed in the late 1970s. It was the precursor to what would become the Delta Force. Thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
All right, Ben, you're up now. It's time for the technical errors. Errors in this film, because there's some ones and they are glaring. We were touching on this a bit earlier, but Glock does not make porcelain guns that won't show up on a metal detector. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's not made in Germany either. They're made in Austria.
Even then, how would they get the ammo
Yes.
through?
Exactly. They wouldn't.
That's still metal.
A C-130 cargo plane does not have a way for its flight crew to eject.
There's
I've
no
never used a
counteraction
hand
from
grenade, Ben, but I'm going to assume the fuse on a hand grenade isn't 30 seconds.
And like I the whole time I was like, why it should have blown up by now, right? Like unless they and they took the pins out of all of them because they made sure they show you the grenade. It's like, oh yeah, we could throw all these grenades in here and then they'll all blow up together. Nah, that's
It's a cool shot though when he ejects and he like it's like an overhead shot and he comes right up to the camera. It's a pretty iconic shot.
Yeah. And no one's like, we should probably kill this guy right now. Like, let's find out where.
Well, I know there's fire trucks coming, and they're like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, but
grenade explosion delays is a bit of a '90s thing, though.
Yeah,
I remember pretty egregiously in Leon.
Yeah, that was the era.
But that's used for dramatic effect.
Yeah, that was the era, though.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a small nitpick either. You cannot ignite jet fuel with a lighter.
Oh,
especially not in the snow.
Yes, that was another one of those great 90 tropes. So it's a trailing
line of fire.
Yeah, it's like, gosh,
they can use the fire to land. It's like I don't think that would work.
Nope.
That's definitely not safe. The lack of coordination with federal agencies is one of my biggest things. And there is no way that Homeland Security wouldn't be there.
There was no Homeland Security then.
True.
That was formed because of 9/11. But 9/11. You're right though. Like the FBI is showing up.
FBI would have been there, but they still had NORAD though, or the Air Force.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ben. I don't think Delta Force would operate on U.S. soil. Wouldn't it have been the FBI? It's technically a law enforcement. It's not a military. It's not a military jurisdiction thing. It would be a law enforcement issue.
It would be a law enforcement thing. But it's America, so who knows who's operating where. That's also another thing too, because they would definitely reach out for other agencies for more support, like the FBI, if they were in charge of this, not just a cop for an airport.
That's just how I understood it, based on what I know about law enforcement. I know the FBI has a hostage rescue team. The FBI showed up in the first movie.
Yeah, so that was just a building,
right? It's interesting. Yeah, man, we are trashing this movie.
It is.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about anything positive yet. Wow.
Okay. Do we want to throw some positives in?
Well, I did like his shawl collar sweater a lot.
Yeah. I like the sneakers.
Yeah.
I thought the pacing was actually like it moved along. It didn't feel like it was dragging too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think it wasn't light on the action, so you can definitely call it an action movie.
Yeah.
In that sense, it was very entertaining.
Yeah. Jay Boyer of the Orlando Sentinel dubbed the film as being disappointing a sequel as another 48 Hours in RoboCop 2 and said, quote, whatever small pleasure there is to be found in this loud dud is due mostly to the residual good feelings from the first film. As played by Bruce Willis, McClane is still an engaging character, even if he is much less amusingly drawn this time. Willis is in there trying, but the qualities that help make his character sympathetic in the first film are missing. McClane no longer worries openly about his personal safety as he did in the original movie. His quasi-cowboy personality from Die Hard is all but forgotten. He has become more of a Rambo and less of a Roy Rogers. And though the filmmakers try to establish McClane as resistant to advanced technology, this promising idea isn't developed. End quote.
Man,
I actually do have something positive to say. I've thought about it. The way they hack the terminal stuff, I believe it. I believe that could happen.
They
It's like-
can't change the ground, though, which crashes the plane. That also has been debunked. That would not work.
Yeah.
you know what? Another positive thing. At least this wasn't RoboCop 3.
I don't think I ever saw it.
It's the one where RoboCop has like a jetpack thing.
RoboCop 2 was bad enough.
Yeah, RoboCop 3 had Japanese cyborgs.
Yes.
Is there more than 3?
If you count the reboot.
Yeah, the Sarah Connor stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And
That was dumb. It's a dumb
Yeah.
movie.
And then there was a TV series, but I don't count those.
There's a TV series?
Yeah, there's 2 TV series and then an animated series. Try to wrap that around
What?
your head. Saturday morning cartoon RoboCop.
yes.
I have a random series you probably didn't know exists. Did you know there was a Poltergeist series?
No.
Did not. That's what
There was. Never seen it, but I mean, because we're going to be
I-
covering a couple of the Poltergeist movies.
If we had an episode where we just talked about Saturday morning cartoons or just add it like TV
No, it was
series.
a live action series.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Poltergeist: The Legacy. 3 years it ran. That's
3
I had
years is
never
way
heard
too
of it.
much.
I only
It's way
knew
too
about it
much.
because I was researching Poltergeist 2, and I was like, what is the series? What?
3 years. Oh my days.
We just ragged on Die Hard 2 for over an hour.
Yeah.
Do we have anything to add before we start to wrap this up?
Bruce Willis, despite the bad lines, actually had like a decent performance.
Yeah, I like him here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible
solid.
dialogue to work with, but yes, I agree.
He didn't really have other actors to work with that.
Were developed.
Oh man, now I'm going back into the realm of bad stuff.
Yeah, that's it. It's Bruce Willis, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we're wrapping this up, Ben, as the guest, would you like to go first and render your rating?
Okay. So I'm going to give this a B minus because there are so many other bad movies that have been spawned and spoofed because of this, which, for example, another highly terrible, underrated film, Game Over, Man, with the cast of Workaholics doing Die Hard,
Yeah.
you know?
Remember that?
And all these other bad movies where this movie, in my opinion, was the genesis for all of this. I mean, granted, it had like massive plot holes, like not enough villain character development, for example, because everyone knows if you want people to, feel good for a villain, you got to talk about why they're doing it, justify the why. So, in my opinion, B minus. I will watch this again during Christmas time. This is being added in my Christmas rotation,
Huh.
just because it's that bad, but good.
Okay. That's insane.
It is.
It's an insane rating.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first here, Anton.
Okay.
This is basically a retread of the first one, and everything in this movie is just dumber. Dumber villain, dumber characters, dumber plot that's far less believable, dumber dialogue. It's just more violent and much cheesier. It does not recapture the magic of its predecessor. There is not a single thing that's better or even on par with the first film. This is a very by the numbers, it happened again sequel. I think it's a serviceable action movie for its era. The set pieces are pretty good. It's a classic by association. I don't consider this to be a classic at all, but because it's lumped together with the first one, it often is included that way. It's a mildly entertaining way to spend 2 hours. I think it just had the unfortunate fate of being a sequel to one of the greatest movies ever made. But to me, this is textbook mediocrity. Die Hard with a Vengeance ended up being a great sequel, in my opinion, because it built off the first movie and it still managed to be original and different. It does not feel like a carbon copy of the first movie like Die Hard 2 does. This film is not underrated. I think it's properly rated. It's by far the weakest of the original 3. I was originally going to give it a C because I think everything in here is like really, really mediocre. But upon the rewatch, I was really surprised by just how awful the dialogue is and how bad a lot of the supporting characters are. So I'm going to go C minus. I think this is a slightly below average movie. There's nothing special about it. I probably actually would watch it again, but as far as a sequel to the first Die Hard, just very, very mediocre.
I think this film is an awesome parody. I feel like, Ben, you made a really great point in that this is like the genesis of so many films that try to look at the action movie template and take all the best bits and pieces and parody it a bit while still kind of paying homage. And I feel like there, of course, was a lot of pointing to the greats, but you can even look at this film and say, by trying to recreate lightning in a bottle and taking all of these tropes from the first film while multiplying stereotypes by a 10, you get what is essentially an airplane or scary movie film, except you actually had Bruce Willis from Die Hard as your main character, which is kind of amazing. Now, for me, that's what made it very entertaining, in the fact that I can look at it with this lens of knowing this is like a film at a time and a place that studios and writers have learned from, except I'm looking at you, Fast and Furious series, of how to move away from certain formulas and maybe moving away from certain stereotypes. But even looking at it within that lens, I feel like it's just not a great movie. It is very entertaining as an action film, very senseless. If I turn my brain off enough, it is enjoyable. And I feel like while it's not a film that I'll return to frequently, I do think that it is a very entertaining film and one that I would totally enjoy watching with other people because of its absurdness and like it's just a parody of the first Die Hard film. So I give this film a C.
Solid.
Well, that is it for Die Hard 2, Die Harder. Ben, as always, it has been a pleasure having you on.
Pleasure, Ben.
Pleasure's on this side of the mic.
Oh, you're too kind. We're going to have you back next season for Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
Woo.
I know we've been talking about that one for a while. Well, yeah, that's it. I think next week's episode is going to be another 90s Christmas-oriented film, Jingle All the Way.
Sinbad.
That's right. As always, if you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever platform, please give us a follow and a 5-star review. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And for those of you who would like to support us directly, we have a Patreon. Links to all of the mentioned are in the description. Thanks for listening, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.